Amén.
Okay, I'm ready.
Ya está en vivo.
Ready? Good morning, Kahal Kadosh, Shavua Tov Umevorach. Monday, the 11th of Kislev, the 9th of December 2019, the Lighthouse Live Video Feed, Torah Project dedicated לעילוי נשמת דבורה פייגה בת שמואל, אורה דבורה בת שמואל, אסתר רבקה בת אברהם, מוניקה מרים בת פניה, מנחם מנדל בן אלחנן, the iTorah.com live audio recording sponsored for the שידוכים of נחמדינה בת חנבתיה, אליהו חיים בן אסתר, אליהו רפאל בן פרחה, רחל פנינה בת ג'ני, אנסלה שמחה בת צופי בעזרת השם. May you all find the suitable שידוכים together with all the single boys and girls from Am Israel. Amen. Today, a most beautiful and practical Gemara from Masechet Shabbat. The Gemara discusses today the concept of celebrating and enjoying the day of Shabbat. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Malrav Kol HaMe'aneg et HaShabbat. The person that derives pleasure in the day of Shabbat enjoys the Shabbat. Notrim lo mishalot libo. Shamayim delivers whatever the heart of the person desires. As the pasuk says, "Beit'anag al Hashem, beiten lecha mishalot libecha." Derive pleasure with the Almighty, and God will fulfill your wishes. As the Gemara on it, when you're telling me to enjoy the Shabbat, what does it mean? The Gemara explains Onek Shabbat, but the Gemara doesn't answer. Explain to me, how do I enjoy the day of Shabbat? We need to understand the following statement from the Talmud. But before we do that, I think that we need to travel back in human history 2,000 years ago. Can you do that for me?
Yes.
Not really. Not really. Yeah, you have a dial-up phone. Okay, Hazal Baruch. Okay, that's what it means, going back 50 years. Okay? And not having a vehicle. But today we live in such a sophisticated times, in technology speaking, in that department, that perhaps it's difficult to understand what does it mean to enjoy the Shabbat. Baruch Hashem, today there is plenty of food available. You have fish for Shabbat, salads for Shabbat, maza for Shabbat, hot meals from Shabbat. And not only hot meals, you have beef, you have chicken, you have whatever you have. But listen to the Gemara, and it says, Tablim shel teradin beradin gedolim berashe shumin. The Gemara says you made a cooked meat or fatty food or a big piece of fish, a nice slice of salmon. Rabbi Yosef Galimidi Amar, afilu davar mu'at, even something simple. Let's say that you never eat avocado throughout the week, and now you went to the market and you bought an avocado and you say, this is lichvot Shabbat. The Gemara says, Arei ze oneg Shabbat. This is considered also honoring the Shabbat. The Gemara goes further. Even if you have sardines, you go to the supermarket, you bought a small can of skinless and boneless sardines, and you open the can in honor of Shabbat, that's also considered Oneg Shabbat, because it shows that a person literally is doing something with Shabbat in mind. The Mefarshim explains that in the olden days they used to take the sardines, they used to dip them in oil and fry them with flour. They made a schnitzel out of Hain Tovim, out of sardine, if you can relate to that. The Gemara will bring different examples. I'm going to the back and then I come back to the beginning of the Gemara. The Gemara tells us that there were certain different traditions that different Talmidei Chachamim they used to activate in honor of Shabbat. One of them, the Gemara says, Rabbi Hanina used to dress in white garments in honor of Shabbat. Today, most of the people do not wear white garments. Maybe a handful in Israel, In America, I don't recall seeing anybody dressed completely white on Shabbat, maybe in Kippur, but this is isolated cases. But in the time of the Talmud, this was to dress something elegant in honor of Shabbat. We can call this a suit for Shabbat. The way a person dresses on Shabbat, different than a person dresses during the week. And what he used to say, Bo nese likrat Shabbat hamalka. Let us go out and greet the queen. Imagine yourself, the king is coming, the queen is coming, a great Hacham from Israel is coming. You're going to greet him in t-shirts, or you're going to greet him with respect, with a proper dress code. The Gemara writes, Rabbi Yanai, he used to have also garments that especially they were utilized only lichvot Shabbat Kodesh. The Gemara writes that they used to have different Hachamim who used to do different things in honor of Shabbat. One of them, the Gemara tells us, was in charge of smoking the fish in honor of Shabbat. Another rabbi was in charge of cleaning the meat in honor of Shabbat. Another rabbi used to set up the candles for the wife in honor of Shabbat. Another rabbi used to cut down the vegetables very thinly sized in honor of Shabbat. Another rabbi used to what? Go down to the field, cut down the tree, chop down the wood in order to have food in order to have fire, rather in honor of Shabbat. Another rabbi used to ignite the fire in honor of Shabbat. And another rabbi used to remove all the furniture that was not going to use on Shabbat in order to bring them inside and set up the table with the Shabbat tables and the Shabbat chairs. Now, you may ask yourself, why does the Gemara spend so many lines and so many examples of doing the Shabbat? So I think that the message of the Gemara is that every one of these Hachamim that the Gemara mentions were not regular Hachamim. They were not regular Hachamim. They were Hachamim from the Talmud. And some of them, they had Shamashim. They had help at home. But yet, nevertheless, when you do something lichvot Shabbat, you are actually honoring the day of Shabbat. Another rabbi used to ignite the fire and sweep the floor in honor of Shabbat, which what the Gemara I think is trying to tell us is that don't run away from helping at home in honor of Shabbat. And I think that this is something that Baruch Hashem I like to believe, at least in theory, that we all help at home in honor of Shabbat. If it's setting up the table, or if it's cleaning up the table, or if it's setting up the candles, or buying flowers, or sweeping, or mopping, not all the time a person has help at home. And sometimes age, or sometimes children, or sometimes guests, that definitely requires from the husbands to step up to the plate and to help at home, which the Gemara actually tells us that this kind of behavior, in a way, is mimicking the way that the Hachamim of the Talmud used to do lichvot Shabbat Kodesh. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Shehakol Nihiya Bidbaro. Now, after we talk about the physical aspect of Shabbat and the way that we honor the Shabbat through garments, through food, through a clean home, to a friendly home environment, lichvot Shabbat. For example, how do you do that? One easy way, you put away your mukse stuff. You put away your cell phone, you put away the iPads, make sure that all the mukse stuff is put away, put it in airplane mode, so the room, maybe make room for the great rabbi to sit in. Put a chair next to me, please. Thank you. Just a brief interruption, quickly. So we talk about to create a friendly home environment for Shabbat. This is important. Why? Because the spirit of the Shabbat is not only food. The spirit of Shabbat, many people have magnificent se'udot for Shabbat, and that is beautiful. But what happens before, during, and after? Now, comes the Gemara, and it tells us a very interesting concept. What is Shabbat? When we celebrate Shabbat, which, Baruch Hashem, the word Shabbat, it's not a foreign word to the world. If a college professor wants to go out, he takes a sabbatical year. Why is it called sabbatical year? Shabbat. Literally, he takes a year off. That's in the world of colleges, etc. Okay? Now, what is the Shabbat? The Shabbat is the testimony of Am Israel that we believe wholeheartedly in our emunah that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world. 6 days, like the Pasuk writes in Sefer Bereshit, Ki sheshet yamim asa Hashem, that God created the heavens and the earth, Ubayom HaShevi'i Shabbat by Nafash. This is our basic concept of Shabbat. Our statement that we say, we believe in Hashem, we believe in the creation of the world, and we believe that God rested on the seventh day, and this is the way Am Israel, generation to generation, all the way from the beginning, we observe and we celebrate Shabbat. Obviously, with the years and with the giving of the Torah and with the structure that the halakha and our rabbis give us in the written Torah and in the oral Torah, so Shabbat becomes a day that has a lot of structure. In other words, I know what I'm supposed to do, I prepare for Shabbat, and there is no limit how early a person can prepare in honor of Shabbat. That ladies, Baruch Hashem, that they start preparing Shabbat from Wednesday. And there are those that are already Monday or Tuesday thinking, what I'm going to do for Shabbat, what do I need to buy? All that is beautiful. But one of the main goals is that we are ready to welcome the Shabbat, and not that the Shabbat should welcome us. But comes the Gemara, and it says a very fascinating statement, and it says, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Amar Rabbi Hiya bar Abba, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, כל המשמר שבת כהלכתו, אפילו עובד עבודה זרה כדור אנוש, מוחלים לו. The Gemara says, a person that during certain time of his or her life was detached from godliness. What does it mean, detached from godliness? It doesn't mean that a person didn't put on tefillin. No, it means that a person did avodah zarah. God forbid. A person bowed down to an idol. And we know very well that this is one of the three most serious transgressions of the Torah. Idolatry, adultery, and murder. These are the three capital concepts of the Torah. So imagine yourself a person who does avodah zarah. What is this person saying with their actions? Hazak u'baruch. Short answer, that him and God are divorced, God forbid. So now, let's say that a person wants to do teshuvah. So one of the ways that the teshuvah becomes activated in the life of the person is to become a person that observes the Shabbat. And that's why kosher witnesses, they need to be Shomer Shabbat. If a witness is not Shomer Shabbat, he's not a kosher witness. Why not? Very simple. Because he's defeating the foundation of emunah. You cannot have true emunah and not observe Shabbat. Because emunah and Shabbat, they are partners. That is what Shabbat is all about, the Gemara says. Shabbat is the emunah that a person has in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. With that being said, the Gemara adds one more concept. that, how long are we praying for Mashiach to come? Long time. If you want to be technical, at least 1950 years. We are praying 1951 years, if you want to be even more technical. That's from the second temple. First temple is over 2,400 years. You follow me? So what can we do to expedite Mashiach's arrival? The Gemara writes, "O Amar Hashem l'sarisim asher yishmeru et shabbatotai v'haviotim el har kodeshi." The Navi Yeshaya tells us, you want to bring Mashiach closer? I need you to do me a favor. Observe the Shabbat. Disconnect from the weekday, from the work week, in order to connect to Kadosh Baruch Hu. And I said this in the past a few times. The Shabbat is our connectivity with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. Although I will say that every mitzvah is a connector to a Kadosh Baruch Hu, and every mitzvah it's like a circuit in the neshama of the person. But guess what? Shabbat is the processor of the neshama, like a computer motherboard. You have a lot of tiny minuscule circuits of all colors, of all sizes. What is the driving force of the computer? The processor, the chip that is inside. Whatever level you have of Intel. You follow me? This is what the Shabbat. The Shabbat is the main drive of the person's life. How the Shabbat is in our life, that in a way demonstrates our connection with Hashem. And God forbid, I'm not trying to minimize all the other mitzvot, but let's be honest, a Hazan that is not Shomer Shabbat cannot be a Hazan. A person that is not Shomer Shabbat cannot read the Sefer Torah. Guess what? Some people will not eat from someone that is not Shomer Shabbat. Sure. Why? Because if the person is not reliable on Shomer Shabbat, how can I rely on the kashrut? You follow me? So we need to understand that being a Shomer Shabbat is actually demonstrating this is my emunah in a Kadosh Baruch Hu. And I know that there are many different levels of a person being a Shomer Shabbat. The ultimate level is what? That a person follows Shabbat in the most proper way. As the Zohar Kadosh writes, many times people understand that observing Shabbat means celebrating Shabbat. Shabbat dinner. That is only one meal. Because if your Shabbat meal, you have the cell phone on the table, or a person has the shalom, God forbid. I'm sure none of us have them. But I don't know who is watching and who is listening. So maybe there is somebody who may not be aware that the cell phone may be mukseh or is mukseh on Shabbat. So you want to make the Shabbat more meaningful. Do like I do. Put away the cell phone, put away the computers, put them in airplane mode. So this way, it doesn't buzz, it doesn't ring a bell. And again, you're not a Hatzalah responder, you're not a public responder, fire rescue, police officer, etc. We are people, good citizens. So therefore, the Lacha writes clearly that observing the Shabbat is not only the celebration, but is our behavior. Did I take a shower before Shabbat? There is a mitzvah of taking a shower before Shabbat. I use shower in the time of the Talmud was wash your hands, wash your feet, wash your face with warm water. Today, who is going to do that? Usually people go into the shower, you have running water, in and out, and you're done. And many of us go to the mikveh. You take a haircut in honor of Shabbat. You have special garments in honor of Shabbat. You set up the table in honor of Shabbat. I don't shave, so don't talk about shaving. You can say that. Okay? Anyways, you understand? Taking a haircut, Ichvot Shabbat Kodesh. Buying flowers, Ichvot Shabbat Kodesh. But a lot of these things that I'm telling you are the basic minimal. But the Zohar brings down that there are additional areas where the Shabbat observance can be determined. And one of them is, how does the person, or what, that will be the better statement, what the person speaks about during the Shabbat. What is the topic of conversation on the Shabbat table? Or what is the topic of the conversation in the synagogue? Hopefully, in the synagogue, we come to pray, and if we talk after prayer, not during, etc. But what happens at home? Also, the person needs to understand, the Zohar Kadosh says, that observing Shabbat, it comes in three different areas: Mahashava, Dibur, and Maaseh. What do we do on Shabbat, and what we don't do on Shabbat? What do we speak about on Shabbat? Obviously, we know this halachot, because we already learned it in the past few years. During Shabbat, we don't plan for after Shabbat. We don't plan. Number one. Number two, during Shabbat, we don't talk about business. We don't talk about investment. We don't talk about buying or selling. Again, we're not talking about you get an aliyah to the sefer and you tell them, I'm giving 101. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about when a person engages in a business conversation in the day of Shabbat, and guess what the Zohar Kadosh says? The mind of the person is changed, because now you're thinking about the business and not really thinking about the Shabbat. So you may ask the question, so what should I think about Shabbat? What should I do about Shabbat? So the Gemara tells us a very powerful statement, that one of the main reasons why we have the Shabbat given to us on a weekly basis, not besides the emunah, besides the creation, besides the candles, besides the kiddush and the food, but the Gemara says, "Lo nitenu Shabbatot beyamim tovim leIsrael ella kedei sheyasku b'Torah." Says very clearly that one of the reasons why we have the Shabbat and the holidays is for us to be able to find a day of the week that we are able Torah without being diluted. What does it mean, the Torah being diluted? When the person learns Torah during the week, right? And especially in our days, how long do we learn Torah? Hopefully an hour, 2 hours a day. But is that hour continuous, or is shredded cheese, the way the Zohar Kadosh calls it? Or is a learning that is interrupted? I came in, I want a coffee. I came in, I want a cake. I came in, I saw my friend. I got a text message. I'm answering emails while the rabbi is talking. I'm not telling you not to do it, but you need to understand, every single example that I mentioned to you, it creates a breaking in the learning. But on distraction, Hazaku Baruch. But on Shabbat, it's different. I have no cell phone. One of the biggest Yetzer Hara today in our generation. You agree? Thank you so much. Hazaku Baruch. We all understand. We all understand that how good it is and how many good things it does. But guess what? How many more hours a person becomes attached and connected to the screen? Since I listened to the story the other day of the fellow, remember that I shared the story of the fellow who refused to listen, to answer the phone in the middle of the prayers? Many people approach me, and I'm very happy that they approach me for this. And he says, Rabbi, since we hear you play the story of the fellow not answering the phone, we are doing exactly the same. We're not answering the phone, and we feel in a very long time that we have not felt that our tefillah is beautiful. Less distracted. Let's be honest here. Let's say, imagine yourself, I'm giving the class, and I look at the phone every 2 seconds, okay? In the meantime, as I'm talking, I got X amount of messages. So where is my mind? In the messages or in the learning? And I can justify being in the messages. And that is one of the advantages that our Gemara tells us that we have in the day of Shabbat. The Ben Ish Chai writes that the learning that a person does on a Shabbat, the value is 1,000 times more than what we gain during the week. Why? Because it's undiluted. No distraction. Yes, there is a concept of taking a nap on Shabbat. There is a concept of napping on Shabbat. But there is a concept also of learning. You know, many times I ask people, why don't you come to the class Shabbat afternoon? No, I was fulfilling the mitzvah. I said, which mitzvah? Shina v'Shabbat ta'anu. Sleeping on Shabbat is enjoyable. True. But Shina also means of learning. Shina is not only to go to sleep. Shina is also of learning. I remember that one rabbi said, you're allowed to take a nap on Shabbat according to the amount of time that you learn on Shabbat. So if you learn an hour, you can nap for an hour. If you learn for 2, you can nap for 2. Try this formula. It's a very interesting formula that definitely in the winter is very difficult to apply, because by the time we finish, we go home, we have lunch, and we come back, Shabbat is almost over. So I think that the message of the Gemara is a very powerful message. And with that being said, let us hope and pray that each person, according who they are, according to the knowledge, according to their awareness, makes the effort of enhancing the way of the Shabbat Kodesh, and Be'ezat Hashem, the zehut of Shabbat observance, as the Pasuk says in Yeshaya Navi, V'haviyotim el har kodshi. I will bring you to the holy mountain of Israel. And I will say something that I wasn't thinking to speak about it earlier today, but I said that it's important for me to speak about it. If, as individuals, we need to enhance the observance of Shabbat, collectively, we also need to enhance the observance of Shabbat. If it's in America, or if it's in Israel, that regretfully, I say this with pain, in some cities, the Shabbat became another day of the week, and not giving the proper, how can I say this, the proper honor and the proper respect that the Shabbat needs to have. And I know that what I'm saying may not be the nicest thing that we would like to hear, but I think that we need to pray that the sanctity of the Shabbat, God forbid, does not become diluted in the land of Israel. Because Haz v'Shalom, one of the biggest protections that exists for Am Israel is Shabbat. Not so much how Shabbat, we observe the Shabbat, but how much the Shabbat protects Am Israel. And that's why the Pasuk says in Perashah Kitisa, something from our Shabbat prayers, Beshameru Bnei Israel et HaShabbat, the concept of observing the Shabbat. But not only that we are the Shomer Shabbat, but the Shabbat Shomer Aleinu, that the Shabbat also becomes an advocate, becomes a protecting force that comes into the world. So Be'ezat Hashem, as I said before, can we change the world? I hope yes, but I'm not sure how realistic is that. But if each and every one of us takes an extra level of observance of Shabbat, for some people could be light the candles on time. For another person will be come home on time. Another person will be come to the shul on Shabbat. Don't show up at 11 o'clock for the Kiddush. What do you achieve? You came for the Maza? We have no Maza. We have no budget for that. Unless you go upstairs. You understand? The idea of the Shabbat is to come, to pray, to listen to the Torah, the reading of the Sefer, listening to wonderful Hazanut, mingle with people, listen to a few words of Torah. Guess what? That, for some people, this may be a big accomplishment. But Yodea Sadik Nefesh Behemto, the Pasuk says. Each person needs to be honest with themselves and to understand the areas of improvement that can happen in our life, especially when it comes to the topic of Shabbat Kodesh, which is definitely something that the Greeks understood. The Greeks, prior to the miracle of Hanukkah, you know what was one of the prohibitions that they enacted against the Jewish people? Don't observe Shabbat. Why? Shabbat is the umbilical cord between God and Am Israel. What happens if, God forbid, the umbilical cord detaches from the mother or from the baby? No air. You better call Hatzalah. You better call 911. No life. The Greeks knew this. The Greeks knew that if we are able to cut down the wire of Rosh Chodesh, the wire of Shabbat, the wire of Milah, and the many additional prohibitions that they established against the Jewish people, in no time the Jewish people will assimilate, and God forbid, in a year or two generations maximum, God forbid, Jewish people will vanish, and they will be part of a textbook, or they will be part of a museum. And this is why we reinforce all these messages that our beautiful Torah brings upon us. The Musar of today, I'll make it brief. I know it's 10 o'clock already, but I'll go 3 or 4 more minutes. The Musar of today discusses one of the main fundamental concepts that a person must have in order to serve Hashem properly. The Musar calls it Achna'a. Achna'a meaning to say a person needs to be able to accept. Surrender, to accept. But surrender, I understand what you're trying to say, but there are different levels. For example, number 1 says that a person needs to think in their brain, in their mind, how many good things happen to the person from the moment that we were born until today. How many things? Parents, family, parnasa, health, food, whatever the person needed to have in life. And it says where all that it's coming from. So it says the Musar of today, very simple. This is part of the Hesed of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is out of the kindness of Borei Olam. Not because we are entitled. We are not entitled. What are you entitled for? Yes, we live in a society that entitlement is part of their mindset. But it says, what entitlement do you have? You were born. Let your parents feed you. But yet, Borei Olam sends our feeding through our parents, correct? Through the parnasa that our parents have, and we were able to go. So it says, if this is the way our mind functions, that understands that out of the compassion and mercy of the Almighty, we were able to have whatever we have in our life, it says that's the case. A person should run to do the mitzvah. I wouldn't have to spend 29 minutes selling the Shabbat ideas to the audience. I'm not selling anything, but I'm saying, why did I spend so much time? Because I understand that not everyone, Shabbat observance may be on the priority list. Sure, it's a nice family dinner, but I repeat, Shabbat is not only about family dinner. Family dinner is one component of the Shabbat. But there are many other elements that make the Shabbat more meaningful. It's like somebody says, Rabbi, I don't understand. How could it be that this Jewish boy marry a non-Jewish girl? This is what the question somebody asked me yesterday. I said, okay, let's analyze their picture. Where did they go? Public school. Okay, what happens after? College. How was the Shabbat observant? Yeah, family dinner. Okay, relax. Take it easy. We erased that from the recording. Haz shalom, God forbid. So I said to the person, this is your answer. But no, Jewish parents. Jewish parents alone is not sufficient. Jewish parents alone, it gives us at least the potential of having a happy ending story. You know, I met with a couple and I told them something that exists in the Zohar in Perashat Pinchas. And I mentioned to them that when there is a wedding, 3 generations from the previous relatives come down to the chuppah. Those that are no longer among the living. And he explained to them the reason why. Because during the lifetime of our grandparents or great-grandparents, the relationship is on a physical, emotional level. But after our grandparents or great-grandparents leave the world and they look at the world from a different perspective, from the Olam HaEmet, from the world of truthfulness, they understand that there is one desire that they want to see it fulfilled. What is this desire? That the descendants remain connected to Hashem and to the Jewish people. And that's why Shamayim sends them down to celebrate with the family. I repeat, this is a spiritual visit, but it's something that happens every time. So what do we understand from this? Home alone is not sufficient. School alone is not sufficient. But when the education and the behavior in the home supplements each other, plus the power of the community, like it or not, our rabbis tell us that the power of the community is greater than what people think. And sometimes people move to a neighborhood because of how the house looks. But we already learned in the past that that is not a good decision to make. First find the minyan, find the synagogue, look at the environment, and then you move. Because if you move to a beautiful home, but you have nothing of substance to offer to your wife and to your children, how do we continue investing spiritually for our future from Am Israel, individually and collectively? But the Musar of today says that if the person really thinks every kindness that Hashem did to us, so then when we look at the mitzvot, we don't look at the mitzvot, God forbid, as a burden, but we look at the mitzvot as an opportunity to bond with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And once we have the connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so then our life starts becoming holier. Why? Because we're acting in a Jewish way, we give an example to a Jewish way, and all the remaining statements of the Musar of today, that it says, through your behavior, through your prayers, through the way you conduct yourself, through your Torah learning, through the mitzvot, even though they all sound small words, but guess what? It's like a drawing. Like a drawing, okay? You look at the drawing. What does it do to you when you look at a drawing? It all depends how you look at it. You know, I heard the other day that they pay for a banana, right? And a piece of tape, $120,000.
Yeah.
Yes, in Miami. And it's considered Basel, right? And it's considered a work of art. And a guy came and ate the banana, by the way. True, right? And they replace it, not to worry, Miami has plenty of bananas. Can you imagine that someone will pay $120,000 for a banana tape with dot tape on the wall? This is art. I don't understand. I must recognize that I'm not knowledgeable in the topic of art. But art needs to talk to the person, right? Sometimes it tells you, doesn't talk to me. Have you heard of this expression? Doesn't talk to me. It says every mitzvah talks to the person if we are willing to listen. If we are willing to listen, every mitzvah talks to us. Doesn't matter which mitzvah is it, it carries a heavenly message that charges the battery of the neshama of the person. My dear friends, have a great day everybody. שבוע טוב ומבורך. ברוך אדוני לעולם. אמן ואמן. רבי חנניה בן הקשיא אומר, רצה הקדוש ברוך הוא לזכות את ישראל, לפיכך הרבה להם תורה מצוות שנאמר, אדוני חפש למען צדקו, ויגיד גדולה ויגיד קדיש.
גדל ויתגדל שמי רבה, ואלמד יברח ויותר וימליך מלכותה ויצמח וקנה ויקרב ושיקרב. ויכון ובימיכון וחיי לכל בית ישראל. הגדה בזמן קריב ולו אמן. אמן. ישמר אברהם יברך. חיים לסבא וישועה בניחם שסבא ולאבא ויסלנו Have a great day, everybody. Shabbat Tov. Have a great day. Rabino, ¿usted cree que los Dayanim usarían algo así como esto para hablar?
Muy buena pregunta.
Porque con esto podrían tener feedback directamente y hablar.
Excelente pregunta, no sé la respuesta.
Voy a hablar con